Hey, 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 what is going on, IK Familia? BN, your boy, Mr. Kingdom Builder. We are back again for another Top Sauce Dopity Infinity Kingdom video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Cleopatra's most used ToK skills. Again, as you know, we pulled data on at least 45 players that are all maining the element compositions, in this case being Earth, from players at a minimum threshold of 160k troop power, if not higher. Without further ado, let's go ahead and unveil our data that we have collected, starting with server 1. And you can see here a couple consistent mentions, as we usually see. Getting into what we found, at least from my summary on Cleopatra, is a little bit more spread with diversity on the ToK skills that were used for her. I didn't really notice anything that was overwhelming as far as a lot of skills being used consistently or even in conjunction with multiple either slot pairings or being used a lot. We're kind of like what we saw with Alex, right? With a few of them, or his most used at 38 out of 45 players were using a specific skill. A little more spread out here with Cleopatra. And I'll kind of go down here to the bottom half as well, so y'all can take a look a little bit at some of the skills there. And now we'll go up to the top, and as we do it in dramatic-ish fashion, we will take a look at the top 5 most used skills. And here we go with number 5. We have Toxin Nova coming in at being used 15 times out of 45, so about a 33% skill usage there. Then we look at the number 4 skill being Fire Nova, its brother or sister skill, and that was being used 16 times. Now we'll break into the top 3, and the number 3 most used skill on Cleopatra is Chase. And then now, with the top 2, we have the second most used skill being Annihilation at 22. So we're getting closer to that 44-45% usage, or I should say closer to that 48 to 50% usage here for this skill. And then we get into the number 1 most used skill, which is Concentration at 24. So not too much of a bump, but at least breaks the plus or over 50% usage for at least one skill per the Immortals, in this case being Cleopatra. And now we'll go ahead and take a look in-game at 1, right? We'll do the breakdown for Cleopatra, her skill, we'll look at her stats, and then we'll go over the top 3 skills that are being used for Cleopatra, and I'll just give you my feedback and opinions as we normally do. So let's go ahead and pull Cleo here, and we'll look at the skill Entangling Snakes. It inflicts magical damage at a damage rate of 195% up to 300% to all enemies, and reduces the damage dealt, or reduces the dealt magical damage of 2 enemy targets with the highest magical attack by 22.8. This goes up to 35% for 6 seconds. So basically your 2 big magic damage dealers have reduced damage for 6 seconds, in addition to Cleopatra having an AoE, or a full AoE, for all 4 enemy units on the field as well. Now we'll take a look at some of the details. Again, strength, intelligence, you see intelligence a little bit higher. Magic attack is a little bit higher than physical attack, with even magic defense being close to physical attack. So you can just tell Cleo more magic attack focused. Now let's look at ToK, and we'll take a look at those top 3 skills, starting with Chase. Now Chase, I believe, is the purple one with the windy spinning wheel thing here. Here we go. So Chase, every crit has a 30% chance of causing extra magical damage to all enemies. So this is somewhat interesting to me, because with crit, it's not as though, from my understanding, that Cleopatra has a high level of crit, along with usually we would typically see, right, so 65, agility's okay, 65-9, I guess that's okay. Let's see how that compares with someone like William Wallace on his crit. Right, so keep in mind, I'm only at skill level 2, 56.6, 37.7, 30. Okay, so a little bit higher, but that's probably because his one goes a little bit more into dodge. So crit's a little higher there. Let's take a look at another level 1 that's comparable. Here's Frederick. Crit is 128 on Frederick, even though, again, he's at skill level 2. I would imagine probably some of these are factoring into that. for some of those with some of the attachments that have gone on. So I guess it's okay. I'm not sure. Again, I really the only way to have a good idea on late game or end game stats would be if you get all your immortals to 40, right? And then, you have them at like all boost level 20, or if they're just all at the same boost level, you take off the equipment, they're all max skilled, and then you look at kind of what the vanilla stats are there. So I'm not sure how I feel about, I guess, Chase being used. Again, it's not as though Cleopatra has a low crit chance, but I just don't know how that stacks up against other immortals. So I'm just going to kind of leave this as like a neutral feedback because I'm just unsure really on how to comment on Chase. But given that it is being used by many players, I can really only assume that there is some value to it, right? So let's go ahead and move on here to Annihilation. Now, Annihilation is, I think it's the Vortex, black hole, yes. Every 6 seconds after battle starts, 45% chance of dealing magical damage to all enemy units. Damage factor is 90, goes up to 300%. So again, about a little less than 50% chance of dealing magic damage. This just seems like kind of a universal skill, not something that is necessarily specific to Cleopatra. Though, again, it does factor off of her damage. It's not a pure flat rate skill, it's a per chance skill. So even though, yes, at least it is focusing on the magical damage, right, and factoring into the damage factor of what Cleo's magic damage is, right, it does play into that, but it still is kind of more of a universal base skill. I guess it's better than, of course, going with something that's more physical damage based. So I think this is okay to use. I wonder if maybe a different skill could be used, unless, for example, maybe they just didn't have another one unlocked at the time for some of the people that were using that. But I still think the skill obviously has a little bit of value leaning towards Cleo. Then we'll look at concentration, which is essentially, if we look at, let me see here, concentration is supposed to be the face with the spinny thing at the forehead. So we have concentration increases your magical damage by 9% up to 30% in battle, right? So again, focusing, as Cleo is heavy on magic, right? Concentration is a skill that really complements her. Annihilation complementing a little bit, and then Chase kind of still being 50-50 for me up in the air. But that kind of rounds out our top three. Let me know, of course, what y'all think. Again, if you're someone out there who has done kind of a deep dive on crit stats for some of the late game comparisons, I just haven't seen any real hard data on it yet. Do you find that running crit on Cleo is something that makes sense? Do you maybe have a different preference for how you run your top three? Right? Let me know anything and everything in those comments down below. That is it for me on this Cleopatra breakdown. Again, we only have 2 more left. I think Leonidas and Zenobia, so be excited and look forward for those. That is it for me, your boy, Mr. Kingdom Builder. We are out. Audi 500 as we use. And I guess I'm just going to catch everyone later.